He had made a promise to bring her best friend back home, but the airline tried everything in their power to stop her. What unfolded next left everyone speechless. Naomi Brooks had worn her uniform for 12 long years, enduring deployments that pushed her to the very limits of her mind, body, and soul. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had ever weighed on her the way this did. She wasn't just transporting a fallen comrade, she was escorting her best friend home. Corporal Devin Hayes wasn't supposed to be in that flag-draped casket. He was supposed to be sitting beside her, making jokes about who was better at poker, arguing about which diner in San Diego served the best breakfast, or teasing her for taking life too seriously. Instead, war had rewritten the script. One moment they were side by side, pushing through the final stages of their mission overseas, and in the next he was gone. Before they placed his body in the transport, she made a solemn promise to his mother. She swore she would bring Devin home. No stranger. No faceless bureaucratic process. Just her, keeping her word. So when Naomi stepped into the chaos of Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, with her uniform pressed, duffel bag slung over her shoulder, the sounds of the terminal faded into the background. The rushing crowds, the endless sea of travelers. None of that mattered. All that mattered was getting Devin back to Wichita, Kansas, where his heartbroken family waited for him, holding on to what little they had left. Naomi had already gone through all the official channels. Military transport had flown them into the States, and now it was time for the commercial airline to take care of the rest. She had all the paperwork, all the clearance, everything was squared away. But something didn't sit right. Something felt off. She glanced at her ticket, Gate B77. Her departure was in just 90 minutes, plenty of time to get everything in order. She adjusted the strap of her bag and walked toward the gate, her eyes searching the tarmac outside the terminal windows. She saw the cargo hold of the plane open, but Devin's casket wasn't in view yet. That wasn't unusual. Normally, there weren't any issues during the escorting process, normally. As Naomi reached the gate, the airline agent behind the counter didn't even glance up at her at first, too busy with her conversation. Naomi stood silently for a moment, waiting for the agent to acknowledge her. Finally, the agent sighed, clearly annoyed, and looked up. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm Sergeant Naomi Brooks," Naomi responded, her voice calm and steady. "I'm escorting Corporal Devin Hayes to Wichita. I just need to confirm the procedure once we land." The agent frowned, flipping through Naomi's paperwork with a look of confusion. Her fingers tapped quickly on the keyboard, her gaze darting between the screen and the documents. Then, she sighed once more, this time, with something Naomi couldn't quite put her finger on. "Actually, that's going to be a problem," the agent said flatly. Naomi's heart skipped a beat. "What kind of problem?" "Your layover in Dallas," the agent continued, barely looking up. "Our policy doesn't allow escorts to remain with the remains during transfers. You'll need to take a separate flight to Wichita while the casket continues its scheduled route." Naomi's chest tightened as her pulse began to race. "No," she said firmly. "That's not happening. I'm not leaving him alone." The agent barely reacted, as if it were just another mundane part of her job. Naomi blinked, trying to comprehend what she had just heard. "I'm sorry, what?" The agent sighed again, this time even more impatient. "I said our policy doesn't allow escorts to stay with remains during certain layovers. You'll have to take a separate connecting flight while the casket continues on its route to Wichita." Naomi's grip on her duffel bag tightened as she tried to keep her voice steady, her emotions barely contained. "No. Absolutely not. That's not an option. I am his escort, and I stay with him." The agent shook her head, her fingers still clacking away at the keyboard. "I understand, Sergeant Brooks, but it's out of my hands. You'll rejoin the remains in Wichita." "I'm not meeting him there," Naomi replied, her voice sharp now, the edge clear. "I'm bringing him there. That's my duty." The agent's expression remained neutral, but Naomi could feel the disconnect. This woman didn't understand. She hadn't stood in a combat zone, hadn't folded a flag for a grieving family, hadn't had to break the news that someone's son wasn't coming home. Naomi took a deep breath, her anger rising. "I need to speak to a supervisor." The agent rolled her eyes. They'll tell you the same thing. Then let them, Naomi said, voice resolute. The agent sighed exaggeratedly, picked up her radio, and mumbled something into it. Naomi's pulse thudded in her ears. This couldn't be happening. She had promised Devon's mother that he wouldn't be alone. Not for a second. Not through the entire journey home. Excuse me, miss? Naomi turned at the sound of the voice. An older man had stood up from his seat nearby. He wore a Vietnam veteran cap, and the lines on his face were etched deep from a lifetime of hardship. His expression was hard, but his voice was steady, like he had heard enough. What's the problem here? He asked, his voice gruff but calm. Before Naomi could speak, the gate agent answered for her. Sir, this is a private matter. The veteran didn't take his eyes off Naomi. Are you a military escort? Yes, sir, Naomi replied, nodding. They won't let you stay with him? The veteran asked, his voice laced with disbelief. No, sir, Naomi said again, her voice tighter now. The veteran's jaw clenched, and without another word, he turned to the gate agent. That's unacceptable. Before the agent could respond, another voice joined in. A woman, clutching a folded flag in her lap, stood up. Naomi didn't need to hear the woman's words to know what was coming. This was a widow, someone who had lived through the pain Naomi now faced. My husband died in Iraq, the woman said, her voice low but full of conviction. And when they brought him home, a soldier just like her stayed with him the whole way. Do you know what that meant to me? To my children? You don't separate a fallen soldier from their escort. You just don't. The agent faltered, her face betraying a flicker of uncertainty, but she didn't respond. Naomi could feel the eyes of the room on her now. People were starting to take notice. Others were speaking up. She's military, one voice called out. Why aren't they letting her do her job? That's disgusting, someone else added. This shouldn't even be a debate. Before Naomi could process the growing commotion, a tall man in a business suit rose from his seat. I fly every week for work, he said. I've seen airlines bend over backward for celebrities and politicians. You're telling me they can't make an exception for this? The gate agent flushed, clearly uncomfortable now. Sir, this is company policy. The veteran cut her off, his voice rising in authority. This is a soldier bringing another soldier home. That means something to people like me, to people like her, he added, gesturing to the widow, and to everyone who's ever served. The crowd began to stir. A few passengers clapped. Others nodded in agreement. The gate agent, visibly rattled now, reached for her radio again. But before she could speak, the intercom crackled to life, slicing through the tension like a knife. This is your captain speaking. Can Sergeant Brooks please come to the podium? Silence swept over the gate area. Naomi's heart skipped in her chest. Had the pilot been listening this entire time? Slowly, she exhaled, adjusting her duffel bag as she moved toward the podium. No matter what happened, she wasn't backing down. She stepped forward, the weight of 100 eyes on her. The crowd had gone quiet, replaced by an air of curiosity. Hope. Had the pilot been paying attention? The gate agent was just as shocked as Naomi, her fingers hovering over her radio. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. Captain, this is... I heard everything. The voice on the intercom interrupted, calm but firm. Sergeant Brooks, come to the desk, please. Naomi didn't hesitate. She marched straight to the counter, jaw set and shoulders squared. The gate agent stepped aside, her confidence slipping away. A tall man in his late 50s emerged from the jet bridge. He wore a neatly combed silver hair and a captain's uniform, his airline insignia gleaming. But it wasn't his uniform that made Naomi stop. It was the way he looked at her. Like he understood. He stopped in front of her and extended his hand. Sergeant Brooks. She shook his hand, her grip firm. Captain. Without another word, the captain turned to the gate agent, his voice carrying an authority that brooked no argument. This soldier is staying with her comrade. The agent opened her mouth, then closed it. Captain, I just explained. I know what you explained, he interrupted. I also know the airline has made exceptions before. I have the authority to request one now, and I am requesting it. The agent shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "I'll need approval." "You have it," he said, cutting her off. "I just spoke with corporate. They'll make it work." Naomi's chest tightened with a flood of relief, gratitude, and so many emotions she couldn't even process them all at once. She had been prepared to fight for this all the way, but now, she didn't have to. The widow exhaled softly, whispering, "Thank God." The veteran, still standing tall, crossed his arms with a satisfied grunt. "That's more like it." The business traveler gave a slow nod, agreeing. About time someone had some sense. The pilot turned back to Naomi. "You'll stay with him, Sergeant, every step of the way." Naomi swallowed hard. "Thank you, sir." He nodded once, then glanced over at the widow. She was still clutching the folded flag to her chest, and for a moment, something passed between them, something unspoken. Without another word, the pilot turned and disappeared back into the jet bridge. The gate agent, still visibly rattled, didn't argue further. She tapped a few keys on her keyboard, then handed Naomi the boarding pass.